Now, without further delay, let's begin today's event, sponsored by Axxiome and hosted by American Banker. I would like to introduce your moderator for today, and that is Mike Fisk. Mike, you have the floor.
Thanks very much, Alicia, and I would like to welcome the audience once again. We are very grateful that you have chosen to share some of your busy day with us. We know that your time is valuable, and we will honor that today with what I'm confident will be an enlightening 60 minutes or so of discussion. Once again, our topic today is Digital Transformation Decoded. And my name is Mike Fisk. I will be your moderator today, and I'm a contributing editor at American Banker. And I am very, very pleased to introduce our four speakers today. Brad Scrivener is President and CEO of Vast Bank. Carl Snyder is VP Banking Solution Management at SAP. Dominic Weiserth is Partner Banking Axxiome. And Sandra Schillinger is Director of Platform and Integration Services, DXC Technologies. So we've got a great panel today. And just before we jump into the discussion, I wanted to reiterate two quick things that Alicia mentioned. That is that we do have time at the end. Hopefully we'll have 5 or 10 minutes for Q&A. You can put your question into the queue throughout the hour. You don't have to wait until the end. So please, as the spirit moves you, get that question into the queue, and we'll make every effort to get to it in the time we have. If we run out of time, we don't get your question, and sometimes it's just a question better answered one-on-one. For whatever reason, if we don't get your question in this hour, we will follow up afterward. So please ask away. We really want to hear from you. And also, we've got a couple polls today, and I always encourage 100% participation. We do share the results with everyone here, and it's a really nice way for folks to see where other people stand on the issue that we have come together to discuss. So with that, let me officially turn things over to Carl to really get things rolling. Carl, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for spending some time with us today for this webinar. As Mike said, my name is Carl Snyder. I've been at SAP for just about 10 years now in our Banking Solution Management Group for North America. And prior to SAP, I worked at Zions, headquartered in Salt Lake City, for more than 20 years, and really kind of grew up in the branch network and operations, and actually set up an internet bank there at Zions. And so welcome, and thank you for joining us today. And I'm only going to take a couple minutes and kind of get going. We hope that today you'll find this to be really interesting. We're going to have more of kind of a fireside chat with our special guest of Brad Scrivener, the CEO of Vast Bank, headquartered in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we want to make sure that we have this open dialogue for you to hear and experience what Vast Bank is going through for their digital transformation. I just wanted to start with just a little bit of backdrop before turning some time over to Brad. And so, because we talk a lot about digitization and digital banking, and it's become a little bit of a buzzword, but becoming a digital bank is obviously critical. And in the past, we were focused, as an industry on, it was very product-centric, with our legacy systems. It was all about products per household, and, there are very specific regulations, and just, we were just really focused on, let's get as many products as we can out there in the market, and that will create stickiness and, deepen wallet share and all those types of things that we used to say. But, there's certainly been a move from that. Right? Now we're really focused in this digital space, really around customer centricity, the move to real time, and really providing solutions for our customers as opposed to just products, right? Of really helping them focus on those outcomes. And we also have new entrants in the market. There's lots of, fintechs and others. And what does that mean as we move to this digital bank? So it's really, really key that we do become a digital bank, but it's not quite enough. And the way we kind of look at this is that the digital bank also needs to be intelligent, and it needs to be connected. And what I mean by that is, I'm certainly not going to read all the bullets on the slide here, but it's really about extending the bank's value chain to really be connected with our retail customers, to really simplify their lives. Those moments of truth when we interact with our retail customers, at least face-to-face, has become, really a thing of the past. So how do we interact with them? How do we connect with them when they do need us, and how do we be proactive with them. Connecting with our corporate customers and becoming a real integral part of their value chain. They are looking for the bank to be part of that. And then, these boundaries really are blurring. Banks are, they've got to connect now with these, larger ecosystems and fintechs that are out there. And how does that become part of this? So as we see it, to be this intelligent, connected bank, we see this kind of with 4 pillars. Connecting seamless with our customers, data-driven intelligence, really we've got so much data in the industry, leveraging that data to make our customers' lives, retail, commercial, wealth management, whatever it is, to really be able to drive an intelligent relationship with those customers. Operational effectiveness, we've talked about efficiency ratios and total cost of ownership for decades. We must be operationally efficient. And then fourthly, financial insight and risk control is obviously very, very important for us. So those are kind of the key pillars as we think, what does it take to really become this connected, intelligent, digital bank? And so those are some of the subjects that we're going to talk about today. And I'm really pleased that we have Brad Scribner, that he's given up some time in his busy day to join us for this WebEx, for him to talk about, what they're doing at Vast Bank and what this, this digital transformation means to them. So with that backdrop, I'm going to turn it over to you, Brad, and let you introduce yourself in a little more detail and take it from there.
Hey, thanks, Carl. I appreciate everyone's interest in hearing about this transformation journey. I thought that maybe a good place to start today would be just to provide a little bit of context about that journey, and then we're going to have some discussion later on. Maybe I'll start, as Carl did, tell you a little about me first. And my path into banking is a little bit different than many. First, I did play football at the University of Missouri, and so go Tigers. A little shameless plug there, but got an engineering degree. First part of my career was in engineering and then consultative sales, and then I've spent the last 17 years in financial services. So let me go ahead and tell you just a little bit of background about our journey in terms of the bank. We had 2 banks with common ownership, very typical community banks. I became the CEO of Valley National Bank in 2012, and then in 2013, as Bank of the Lakes went under a consent order, I became the CEO of that as well. In 2014, we merged the 2 banks, and Valley National Bank survived. We were roughly $380 million in assets combined at that particular merger, and then in 2019, we're rebranding as Vast.Bank. And asset-wise, we're around $650 million today, which has been organic growth since the merger. So when we look at the journey, maybe a graphical representation could help. We went through a healing phase where there were some regulatory agreements for Valley and Bank of the Lakes starting in 2009 and 2010. As I mentioned, I took over as CEO in 2012 and 2013. And then we started the merger planning in 2012 and then completed that in 2014. Starting in 2015, as we were coming out of that stabilization, we really were growing quite nicely organically. We were able to attract some people to the team. And then starting in 2016, we really started investigating transformation. And our starting point, I'll talk about this in just a little bit, but it really was we didn't know what we didn't know. And we felt like that it was critical that we figure out how to remain relevant to our customers. And those early discussions with our key stakeholders really were around creating alignment around what the challenges were and how we thought we were going to go forward with that. And that included our shareholders, our executive team, employees, our regulators, so we were very transparent about those things. Then in 2018, we started the implementation of the Vast Bank transformation and started our first fintech partnership. And then as of 12/31/18, we actually had live accounts in a test environment, production accounts opened on SAP Banking Services. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a picture of what we've done over the last years. And I've been asked a lot, what was our mind, what were we thinking as we went through? And really here, these are some critical starting points for us. We weren't going to sell. We had to make sure that we were very customer-centric, that we were going to be hyper-relevant to that customer, coming alongside of them to help them in their journey. And I guess our hypothesis was that we felt like that we could leapfrog technology. We felt like there was better technology out there that we could incorporate. And so we also had a mindset where change was equal to opportunity. And I'm sure that this is a very well-read group. I don't need to go through everything, but from a customer preference perspective, there was reduced trust in banks after the global downturn, unfortunately. There are financial experiences out there, and customers want to have an easy experiences in Amazon or an Uber or a Netflix. You've got surveys saying that 50% plus of certain populations were willing to blindly say they would want to bank with Google or Apple or Facebook, right? If they offered those type of things. Well, those are pretty sobering type of statistics. Disruptive technologies, mobile devices are everywhere. From a competitive environment, you've got niche fintech companies that are attacking highly profitable segments, whether it be lending or payments or trade finance, FX, all of these different things. It reminds me of the medical industry several years ago with MRIs coming out of hospitals and things like that. You also have a regulatory environment, and we felt like that with a single source of truth and the right technology platform, that there was going to be opportunity for us to provide more effective risk management and to allow for greater transparency with our regulators. So we were really taking a look at trying to thrive in the face of all of these changes. And so when you boil it down, all of that thinking, this was kind of our guiding principles for the transformation. I just say that we did not put forward an RFP, which is probably a more typical path. Every single meeting that we had with the leading banking technology providers, with global technology leaders, with others, we were talking about this list. In fact, I'm sure my team was tired of us talking about those things. But we really were looking to align, for a partner to align with us philosophically in terms of partnership, easy integration, putting the customer in control, and focusing on being able to provide that customer experience that we were looking for. And so our partners, which we'll talk about today and are on this phone, we really feel fortunate to have world-class partners that have helped us put together an infrastructure that we believe is going to put us in position to be able to compete. So I hope this helps with some of the context and background, and maybe as we get into the questions and answers, I hope that helps a little bit.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brad. So, Mike?
Excellent. Thank you. And as promised, we've got this first of our poll questions. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to read through the question, and it's just a straight up yes or no. So that should probably give everyone enough time to make their selection. So studies show that upwards of 70% of banking executives are frustrated with their core systems. Do you feel that your core system is overdue for a major upgrade or replacement? So how this audience tracks against that 70% figure that we've got there in the question. All right, that's probably enough time for everyone. Let's go ahead and share results. And there we go. So 83.3% say that it's overdue for a major upgrade or replacement. So that's appreciate that feedback. And let me turn it back over to our speaker.
Okay, thanks, Mike. That's really interesting. Thanks everybody for answering that question. So I've got a couple questions, Brad, for you. This is Carl again, and Brad, you mentioned something in the previous slides where you talked about disruptive technologies as an opportunity. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges that you were facing that where you thought newer technology could help you could help you resolve?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Carl. Thanks. Well, as I mentioned, we knew our stake in the ground was we were not selling, and we had a belief that we had to be hyper relevant to what customers were wanting and how they wanted to experience financial services in this modern world. Ultimately what we're trying to do, what we want to do, is we want to make banking surprisingly easy. And, let's not forget that digital disruption has really been going on since the 90s. I mean, I'm sure that the audience remembers Kodak, Blockbuster, Uber, obviously more recently, and this headlines of the retail apocalypse, right, that are going on right now. And my point in saying that is that these are real threats that have impacted multiple industries, and our feeling was that banks would not be immune to those pressures. And so fundamentally, we believed that modern tools were part of the solution that would position us to compete and thrive. And you talk about technology, and certainly technology is part of that tool set. But our thinking was that technology doesn't necessarily solve everything if you only bring your existing core processes to bear on with that technology, right? So it can actually make things worse in some cases. So what we were looking to do was to put the customer in control of the experience, effectively turning it upside down on its head, whereas the bank has typically been in control. We wanted a single source of truth with our data so we could do interesting things to come alongside of our a customer to help them in their journey. We wanted to be nimble. We wanted a reliable and scalable system like what we feel like we have with the enterprise-grade system that we have in place. And we wanted that philosophy of partnership and easy integration. So I guess those were the things that were on our mind, Carl, just in terms of the disruptive technologies and how we thought we could, take advantage of those things.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brad. So let me ask you another question then. So, let's be honest. You made a pretty bold move to do a transformation with a core provider that's not one of the traditional U.S. Legacy core providers. So can you take us, through that decision process and, maybe talk about some of the key factors that went into that decision process of going outside of what for many is, considered kind of the traditional sense of doing any type of core banking transformation?
Yeah, sure. We had core and the traditional core and ancillary products. And again, the bankers on the phone are going to know those technology providers that service the banking industry primarily. And it's a traditional bank in the box, is how I've referred to it. And what I mean by that is all the modules were included to run the bank in basically a single system. You have silos of data. It's difficult to truly know your customer in a 360-degree view. It's hard to integrate new partners and do interesting things, and made it difficult in our mind to remain hyper relevant to ever-changing customer preferences. And so we felt like we had a choice. We could either invest to catch up with what other banks had already been doing. And remember, as I went through that graphical representation of our journey, we were pretty busy doing some other things as opposed to investing to catch up. And, we thought the other part of that choice was to invest to leapfrog to a modern tool set. And ultimately, banks are in the risk management business. And for our perspective, I'm not saying this is the case for every bank or every situation by any means, but our choice, we believe that the risk of irrelevancy was greater with the legacy platforms than what we felt like we could do with the modern platform. So as I mentioned, 2016, we kind of began that journey. We were communicating our thinking with our key stakeholders, meetings with numerous vendors, U.S.-based, global-based, due diligence that went along with that. Multiple vendors came on site and offered proposals in terms of how to meet those guiding principles. And then in 2018, we selected Axxiome and SAP and DXC as that core technology partners, and we began the implementation.
Okay, great. So, Brad, there's a couple questions coming in. I wanted to, ask one, or we can answer this one. But somebody asked, did you retain your existing legacy core and bolt on middleware, or move to the new Challenger core? And that's kind of a little bit maybe what you're going to talk about a little later on. But maybe you could just
I don't mind addressing that. The very interesting thing that Axxiome brought to the table, to answer the question simply, through this transformation, we will have the Axxiome digital front end on top of our existing legacy core, and then we will be transforming components out of that bank of the box and bringing them out into the SAP environment over the next 3 years.
Okay, great. And just maybe one other, Brad, if we can, before we move on to the next poll question, which is, so knowing that you can't, this is another question, knowing you can't do everything at once, so what areas did you choose to focus on first, and what was kind of the prioritization process that went into that?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And again, this is going to be very personal for every bank, right, in terms of the things that they're doing. We have focused on a fintech partnership that will be standing up in the second quarter of this year. That has been one priority, and the reason for that is that we think there's an attractive customer acquisition model that is associated with that, which can bring revenue. So that was a simple one. From the vast transformation perspective, we will be focusing on the account origination component here initially. We also have a data hub with S4, SAP's HANA platform, which is going to give us that single source of truth for both our legacy platform as well as the information that will be coming through this fintech, which will stand up on top of the SAP platform. And we will also have the SAP Finance GL module that will be going live here in the second quarter. And then in the remainder of 2019, we are still doing some of that prioritization effort, but you're going to see some of the servicing aspects of things starting to come on board, some of the internet mobile and other things that will be going on. But this is roughly a 3-year process that we're doing. And by the way, that prioritization process is very hard. It's like asking your kids, what do you want for Christmas? Everything's a priority.
Right. Okay, great. One other really quick question is somebody asked if the system is real-time and cloud-based. And so the answer to that is yes, and that's what you're doing there through this transformation. So, Mike, why don't we go to the next poll question?
Sounds good, Carl. Yes. And everyone, it's sort of the same drill as before. I'm just going to read through this question, which is a yes, no, or some question, answer and possible answers, and that should give everyone enough time to answer ways here. So, are you losing business to other banks that have more advanced technology? And I guess the options here are yes, no, or you're losing some business. And I'll turn things Carl. Okay, that's probably enough time. Let me go ahead and share results. There we go. So it looks like almost a third said yes, and almost half said some of business. So, again, really appreciate you participating in this poll, and let me kick it back over to Carl.
Okay, just a couple other quick questions for you, Brad. And this one I wanted to ask you, but also a question that's come in online as well. But so, how has the staff of Vast Bank reacted to this digital transformation, to this core transformation that you're doing?
Yeah, another great question. I'm very proud of our entire team. Think about it. This was a very traditional group of bankers that have experienced lots of changes going back to 2009 before I even came in, that we were discussing earlier. And like most bankers, we have great people. They truly want to serve their customers. They're fantastic at building relationships. I call it shaking hands and kissing babies. They are also relatively conservative, as most bankers are. And the truth is that at the beginning, most of our bankers were likely more skeptical than they were willing to share with me about this whole transformation thing. Is it really necessary? Other banks aren't doing this. Why us? We're small. Why should we be the ones that are doing this? And, why don't we just upgrade to that next product? And these are natural and very good questions. But over time, as we started to explore this transformation, I can really say that our entire team has embraced this transformation. And we have developed over this last 3 years a very strong alignment from our shareholders, which we are a family-owned bank, but from our shareholders all the way to our employees. We have a very strong sense of what we're trying to accomplish. And the truth is I'm seeing a lot of pride in our team as they gain confidence that we, this bank that came just a few years ago from some regulatory and some healing issues, are executing world-class technology platform, and we're going to be the first in the United States to do it. So it's been really fun for me personally to see our entire organization grow and stretch and mature. And again, I'm very proud of our team. And if you're listening, I hope we got some bankers from Vast that are listening. I really do appreciate you all. And I certainly appreciate our partners with Axxiome and SAP and DXC. There's no way we could have done this without their guidance as well. So thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brad. So I'm just going to ask one more question, then I'm going to turn to the next phase here and talk a little bit about the transformation drivers. But so what other intangible benefits do you and the bank expect to see out of this digital core transformation?
You weren't supposed to ask me hard ones, Carl. Okay. Okay, so this transformation is really about putting in place a new foundation. And I said it earlier, modern tools and technologies does not mean that we're going to win. In my mind, it provides the capability for us to be nimble and to adjust so we have the capability of being hyper-relevant. But, we know that customer preferences and technologies are going to change, and I feel like we have to be able to change with that. So our team has to take this foundation, and we have to be able to deliver innovative products and services that customers want that make banking surprisingly easy for them. And I truly believe that banking and community bankers is a noble profession. And, I'm really going to be excited to see our bankers and those fintech partners dreaming of new ways to serve customers with better experiences and lower their costs. I think we're going to be able to find ways to serve the underbanked and low to moderate income folks without the concern of typical technology limitations. So, right now, we don't know what we don't know in terms of the types of products and services that we're going to bring to bear, but I truly believe that the technology aspect of it is not going to be the limitation. And I think that'll be the first for our bankers to be able to experience.
Great. Thanks, Brad. I'm going to turn it over to Dominic Weiserus now. And Dominic, there is a question out in the queue about kind of what the architecture looks like. I think that's something you're going to talk about for a minute, but exactly what Axxiome's role is and what DXC and SAP's role is in the transformation. So that is one question that we did receive through the queue that I think you'll be able to answer here. So with that, Dominic, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Carl, and absolutely I'll try to answer that question going forward here. Maybe a quick introduction. I'm a partner at Axxiome, and I've been doing transformations for the last 20 years in different regions of this globe, and I was intimately involved also with the transformation that we started at Vast Bank. So shortly, I want to go to what are the drivers that we see and that we come across when we talk to people for the intelligent and connected banking. And the first thing I want to really look at is there's three equally important stakeholders that we need to balance. Otherwise, we can't really successfully transform. And that's the interest of the customers, the employees, and the bank and its management and its investors. We need to find that balance so that at the end of the transformation, everybody actually gets out of this with a win-win-win situation. And so when I start focusing initially on the customers, for us, the most important piece is the customer centricity, but throughout the life cycle. It's not just a snapshot and moment in time. It's not enough to just improve the onboarding experience. That's one aspect of it, but we need to be able to holistically serve the customer. The other things is when we have a customer and we give them technology, it needs to be fast and it needs to be intuitive. We can't give them things that they don't understand, that are too complex. We want to give them something that is, anytime, any device, always available. We hear this all the time. They can stop whatever they want to do. And I want to point out just two more points on the customer. One is we want to have this service-driven and augmented. And when I speak about this is we want to incorporate third-party offerings to the customer. We want to be able to also augment the services outside the traditional banking product. So we need to have that flexibility that to offer that. And the last part is it's not enough to just digitally transform and leave your traditional channels the way they are. Those channels are connected, the experiences are connected. And coming back to that customer centricity, it's important to transform both and have a complete and holistic transformation towards the customer. If I come over to the employees, I want to just focus on two aspects. One is simple and integrated. We want to get away from having to manually transpose data from system to system. We want to have one simple flow, and it needs to be simple to understand, simple to operate. And the second piece is what we hear a lot from employees is like, it would be great to have all the data that we need at hand so we can actually speak to our customers educated, that we come across, that we know and we fully understand the whole picture and what's going on at the customer and for the customer. Coming back a little bit to what Brad said, from a bank's point of view, winning the race of technology, staying relevant. We need to put in technology. We need to have things that hold out for a while, that really will allow the bank to leverage the investment and stay relevant. The other big part that we had there is access to the data. And I mean, not 2 days later, but really almost real-time, if not real-time, access to your complete data. And the last piece I want to point out here is really that openness with fintechs and partnerships so that the technology is not inhibiting the business models that bankers can think about. So I think that's on the big picture, the drivers that we had. From there, we went to the question, okay, what does that mean? How can technology actually help that piece? And once more, coming a little bit to the customer. If I put the same thing in some more technological phrases, I'd say, okay, I need to provide my customer an omnichannel experience. I need the ability to have self-enrollment with biometric authentication, with IDA, and all these other, what you would call buzzwords, but they're not buzzwords. They need to be integrated. If I look at some aspects on the employee side, it's give them one UI, go away from toggling, just really to one experience for the employee. And that also, if needed, mobile, within the branch, bringing the banking to the customer and really enabling that piece. The other is giving really the employees that real-time data access. So having platforms that understand that support that access to a bigger piece of data and a bigger insight to that customer. And the last piece is really the integration with the compliance-related system. So making sure that we plug everything together so that we are compliant, but at the same time that that happens behind the scenes. And whatever we can do behind the scenes is, rule-based or AI-based, so that we're not having to rekey information and have complex manuals on the side of the desk to be able to actually execute what is needed. And from the banking side, there's an equal interest to have a low-training environment. So it needs to be intuitive, and it needs to be, if any possible, self-learning or at least efficient. And then open for the partnerships. And from an infrastructure point of view, cloud hosted needs to be able to run in the cloud, and it needs to have these aspects. And also, we didn't talk about it, and I don't want to go too deep into security. Is of pivotal interest of all of these parties that we're seeing here. Maybe last, that was our definition of what a solution should bring to the table. And this is kind of on a high level, the architecture, and I'm not going to make this here an architectural webinar, but just really what did we put in place to kind of bring this together. We said, okay, we need, on the top level, we need this omni-channel. We need the ability to have the process configurable in a two-speed architecture. We need to have the ability to control the process and to expose the process via APIs. So that brings us this anytime, any device integration. It allows us to integrate third parties seamlessly into the process. And we said we need to pre-integrate to what smaller and mid-sized banks really need to have so that this becomes a well-rounded architecture and solution offering. If I move down then in the middle, we said what is for us a central piece that we need to see in the core. And we can connect to any kind of core, but we said the most important thing that we need is a digital core. And it needs to be a core that allows us to access its data and to trigger the processes from the outside. So there is no protected areas that we can't access, but where we have to then re-internalize the processes. So for our focus was on that digital core piece. And the last one is a major piece for us was to say we need a data warehouse, analytics platform in modern terms that is real-time, that runs real-time, where we can move the data there real-time, access it real-time, and not just through pre-canned stuff, but also through self-service reporting, enabling all of this and bringing it out. And the last aspect I just want to speak to is really the scalability, extensibility of that platform. We designed it to run for small and mid-sized banks, but we also can extend that and it scale up. And one big aspect of scaling is really that cloud enablement of the solution. So we got there also a question regarding the cloud enablement. So maybe I'll just bring that in here. Maybe Sandy, it would be great if you could answer this one. So is the solution cloud ready, and can it run only in a particular cloud, or is it across clouds?
Excellent. Thanks, Dominic. Yes, the solution is fully cloud ready, and I saw one of the questions asked, does it run on standard architecture? So yes, today we've deployed the digital banking solution for Vast Bank in the AWS public cloud, and so AWS has certified SAP configurations on their standard hardware and standard public cloud offer, and so that's what we've deployed it on today. And it can also run within the Azure public cloud, and also DXC has a virtual private cloud that it could run within as well. So within the cloud, we create a secure single-tenant compartment within the cloud environment, and a virtual private network, or VPN, is established between the bank's corporate network and the SAP compartment within the cloud. And so it's a secure encrypted tunnel. All the data within the digital banking environment is encrypted both in transit and at rest. And then as well, the DXC personnel that are supporting the entire environment have access separation from the support to the bank's users of the SAP system. So really, in sum, we build a highly secure environment within the cloud to house the digital banking solution. So good question. Thanks, Dominic. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks a lot, Sandy. So I think that's kind of what I wanted to get into in the architecture. Since we have a running project, I'll also have some hard questions for you, Brad, as you would put it, and maybe we can pick some of those up.
Perfect.
So you talked about the guiding principles, and we have now the first solution pieces in place. We had, I want to say, an alpha go live in December, and now you see more and more of those pieces. Do they meet your guiding principle? Do we kind of fulfill your expectations, and what were your initial impressions?
Please share. The transformation is progressively going to be occurring, over the next 3 years, I believe I mentioned. But I've been pleased with the process and with the progress. And, I think there's maybe a couple of examples that really kind of point to those guiding principles. I mentioned this first FinTech partnership launch in the second quarter of 2019. But originally, as Dominique knows, we were going to be implementing that through a different technology partner that the FinTech was working with, and that ended up not working. So in the third quarter of 2018, we were able to pivot basically on the fly to an Axxiome SAP DXC platform and open those first test accounts in December 31 of 2018. So I think that's a really strong example of the nimbleness, the scalability, the ease of integrating those partners, although we all know through those cadence calls that it's not easy to do. But still, it made it look easy, and it was done pretty quickly. The second thing is that in the second quarter, we're going to have that access to a single source of truth with our data with that HANA platform. And that's the foundation for a 360-degree view into our customer and really being able to know them and eventually being able to develop the ability to perform predictive analytics. So I think those are two good examples and two good starts on those guiding principles.
All right. Thanks, Brad. I think it's great if we hitting the mark there. But hitting the mark, we started the transformation process, and not everything goes according to plan, right? We had quite a few calls in between, and so looking back over the last few months that we had this, what were the most pleasant and also the most unpleasant surprises for you?
Okay, on the pleasant side, I mentioned earlier about the account origination process, I think, in an answer to another question. We've seen the demos of that. I'm very pleased with that. It dramatically improves our existing manual processes. I anticipate that we're going to see at least an 85% improvement in the time to open the accounts. We estimate that it's going to eliminate 70% of our bankers' pain points when they're having to open accounts by going to multiple different systems. And ultimately, we believe that's going to translate into a better customer experience. On the unpleasant side, this is a complex project, so anybody that has gone through complex projects won't be surprised. But part of our mitigation strategy was really our partners' experience, and I've been pleased with those partners' guidance. I think the biggest surprise for us came in the form of UAT testing, user acceptance testing. Our original assumption was that with the phased transformation plan that was going to be for the legacy bank only, that the UAT would occur with Vast Bank personnel. And we felt like there was low risk because we would still have the legacy platform as a backup. But when we pivoted in the third quarter of 2018 to bring on that fintech partner, and that really challenged that growth assumption because it has potential for very explosive customer growth. And so those accounts are going to be opened on SAP Banking Services. So long story short, we have now added a third party to help us with the UAT and to help the bank with overall program management. And, it really drove home to us, although we talked about this, leading up to the implementation, but we have a lot of increased flexibility and control and the ability to bring in new partners. But that also means increased responsibility on the bank and on our people that, we will still continue to grow and mature and develop those capabilities.
All right. Good. I mean, it's good and it's bad, but I think it's a typical transformation program. And I think that's important to have that the right mindset to deal with what's happening there. But if you now would see, when do you expect that you see value out of this project, out of this transformation? Do you think you'll see it at the end of the program? Do you think in incremental pieces? Where do you believe the bank and all those stakeholders will get the value out of it?
Oh, we're already seeing value. I mentioned the team earlier. We're maturing. We're developing new skills. As we have the opportunity to rub shoulders with world-class partners, there's a lot of knowledge transfer that's taking place. So I feel really good about our team and their ability to grow through this. In addition, this phased transformation and the agile development process is going to be continually rolling out different components that we will immediately get to take advantage of. That's going to be good for our employees. That's going to be good for our customers. And it's going to be good for our bank as we develop this mentality of constant improvement. And our customers develop this mentality that we are constantly going to be up to date with the types of things that we're doing, and it's never going to stop.
All right. That's great. And the last question from my side, and you said maybe this is a hard one. What's the biggest learning, and for you and for your organization, what's the biggest learning you take out of this?
We can do this. This team can actually execute this transformation. We're about to do the first part of it. I mean, think about it. 3 years ago, we're this small, sleepy little community bank. We had just worked through all these challenges, whether they be regulatory, merger, the ability early on not to attract people, to now when we're able to attract, really talented people. We knew we didn't want to sell. We knew we had to be relevant to customers. I'm not sure that anyone looking at us from the outside would say that we were well positioned to start this transformation. But at the end of the day, this team has done it. And I think that there are a lot of reasons for that. I mean, we've got the alignment, which I think is really, really critical for any organization that's going to do that. At one level, I'm driving this, but the shareholders and our employees are all actively engaged with this. We found the right partners. We've got a team that has been traditional bankers that are embracing change and driving change. And the bottom line, in the second quarter, we're going to start to see some live things, and our customers are going to start to see those things. So, again, I'm very proud of this team, and I'm very appreciative of the partners that have really helped us to get to this point.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Brad, so much for sharing all of this. I think we want to take some questions from the audience and answer them. And before we do so, I think we have a third poll question.
Yes, Dominic, thank you. Absolutely. We've got a third poll question here, and this is just really to get some feedback from the audience. Would you be interested in learning more about how the proposed digital banking architecture fits your specific needs? And that would just be great for us to know. Just answer yes or no to that question. I'll let that poll sit up there just a moment. We've got some really great questions from the audience, and we've got about 5 minutes to handle them here. So I want to go ahead and jump in and just ask the first of these questions to actually ask. I will ask Brad this very first question. I know you've been on the hot seat here, Brad, but let me go ahead and ask you: did you have any regulatory challenges with your core banking in a public cloud?
No, not yet. I mean, at the end of the day, all of those compliance things, we are going to be fully compliant before we launch. We've been transparent with our with the OCC. We're an OCC regulated bank. We've been having these discussions since 2016, and so. At one level, I wish Mark Charles was here, my IT director. He'd let him answer that question, but we don't anticipate any problems.
Excellent, thank you. All right, let's see. Again, just so many great questions in the audience. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Do you is SAP running as your core system, or just providing your digital front end? Can you describe what each of your partners did or are doing for you, i.e. what was SAP's role, what was DXC's role? Are you live on the solution today, and what have the results been? So many questions embedded in there, but there you have it.
If that's for me, we will be, Axxiome Digital will be opening accounts on our legacy system in 2019. At some point in time in 2020, that will change over. We will migrate to the SAP banking platform for the legacy transformation. In 2019, the second quarter, the FinTech partner will be opening accounts on the SAP platform. Axxiome Digital is involved as a user interface and integration tool throughout. SAP has the enterprise platform pieces with GL, data, and the transaction components, and DXC is the IT services provider in the cloud, and as Sandy mentioned earlier, we're on AWS. Dominic, Sandy, anybody else want to add to that? Please feel free.
No, I think you put it right there. SAP is going to be the core in the future for the legacy, but it is and it will be the only core for the FinTech that we're standing up. For the digital front end, Axxiome Digital will provide exactly that functionality completely across all channels for the legacy. And the digital front end for the FinTech partnership is the FinTech itself. And DXC is the managed services provider that will be running the solution in the cloud.
Excellent.
Yep.
Excellent.
Perfectly well described.
Yeah, I've got. It's Carl. Brad, I've got a question here that I'd like to ask while we just got a couple minutes left. So, when you talk about these phases, you've talked about the digital and then transformation of the core. And I think you may have answered this question, but so you've got this vision out there of when you will be migrating everything. So far, is that all on cue and everything? Are you able to you're meeting those timelines at this point with the project?
I'd say broadly speaking, we are. We have, as I mentioned earlier, we have prioritized the FinTech launch for the reasons mentioned earlier. So Dominique and I and the team I haven't seen the final, but that may shift our legacy bank transformation slightly, but not significantly. So to answer your question broadly, I think we are on track for the broad milestones over the 3-year period of time. We may see, a 30 to 60 day slippage on the legacy transformation side, but that is a prioritization exercise, not necessarily indicative of the partners, the things that we were doing.
Okay, great. And there's a lot of questions in the queue that we will, that we can't get to today, and we'll make sure that we spend some time and respond to those questions. So, Mike and team, the American Banker, we'll turn it back over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Carl. And so we're just about the top of the hour. We always really like to bring these things in, as close to schedule as possible, knowing that many people are running off to something else at the top of the hour.
And apologies, it does sound like we may have lost Mike's line at this time. But we do want to thank you again to everyone for joining us for today's call. We thank you to our attendees for your great participation in your Q&A, and we thank you to all of our speakers for joining us and your great content on today's webinar. Thank you again to all of our attendees for joining us, and this will conclude today's call. You may now disconnect.